What's up, tubers? Tio here, Simplistic Fishing, back at you again to finish up Lake Weatherford. We did the Google Earth video. I'll put the link up to the top so you guys can see it. We did the Google Earth video, and now it's time to switch over and take a look at the contours on this lake and see if there's anything offshore that we can find. Now, I want to warn you, this is probably going to be a pretty short video because there's not a lot of offshore stuff on Lake Weatherford that I can find from a contour perspective, but I got some stuff to share with you, and I hope it will help you get on some fish. Let's go ahead and get started, see what we can find. Here we go. If you've watched any of my breakdowns before, you'll know that I usually use the web app, the Navionics web app, to just break down some of the smaller lakes. And then I'll use the mobile app when we get into the bigger lakes where I can actually put some waypoints. So unfortunately on Lake Weatherford, I'm just going to keep you guys here on the Navionics web app because I only have about 4 or 5 points to share with you. So it really doesn't make sense for me to go over and use the mobile app for that. So let's just kind of talk about Lake Weatherford real quick from this standpoint. And then I'm going to switch over and I want to go back and talk to you guys about the diffusers that are on this lake, because I think that's going to be key to finding some offshore fish on this lake as well, especially coming to summertime. So if we look at this lake, really, there's not a lot of offshore stuff like I talked about, not a lot of points, not a lot of pockets, just not a lot of really anything. It's just kind of a big blah that's down here. But if we just kind of follow this little river channel or creek channel or whatever it is that's out here, this area out in here, I mean, if I'm going to look for offshore stuff, I'm going to pay some attention out in this area and just see if I can find anything relating to that whole creek channel or whatever that is that's out there, because that's where you're going to find your brush piles, all your big laydowns and all that kind of stuff is somewhere around that area. So you're going to have to do a lot of scanning to find some stuff here from a contour perspective that's not just popping out at me to say, hey, it's probably right in this area. So do a lot of scanning right around in here if you really want to do some offshore out here, and you're likely to find something somewhere in this little area right here. Now, as we move on down, also there's a water intake over here. Sometimes when you see those water intakes, there can be decent ledges. There can also be debris and stuff around those. So take a look at that. I didn't mark it on the card, but you definitely want to look at that. Now, one place I did mark on the card was right here off of this point. So it's just north of the boat ramp here. This point looks really good. It looks like you've got some probably just some man-made rock or riprap that goes over here off the point. But if you get right off the edge of the point, you get a pretty decent little break. And just because the fact that there's not that many points on this lake, you definitely want to fish this point. There's, like I said, there's not many. I think there's 4 or 5 different points on this lake, and that's it. You want to fish every single one of them for sure. So definitely take a look at this one. And then as you move down here, again, didn't see too much. You've got a little bit of stuff going on around here, around where it says there's a fishing pier out here and stuff like that. Just some decent little contours, but nothing too crazy. Nothing that I would really honestly even stop by to fish. Now, I may go back in here, though. If we get back in this area down by where the boat ramp is, there's something really deep in there. So my guess is there's a pond dam somewhere in there. And those pond dams sometimes can be really good. I really like kind of like this area right here where it's 5 foot and then it immediately drops off down to say 15 foot. So this could have some potential there. If you're out there just fishing. Again, I don't think I marked that one because that's not really offshore, kind of offshore. I don't know if it is or not, but I didn't mark that one. But anyways, check that one out. And then definitely, coming out here and fishing around this area, around this point. I'm not sure how far out those buoys go if you're able to actually cast up around that point. But if you are, you definitely want to fish around in this area. And then as we move up, just didn't see too much until we get up here. Now, again, like I said, there's not a lot of points on this lake, right? So the points that are here, you definitely want to fish. This one looks pretty good. It's got a nice little flat that comes out right in this area. Nice little drop off. It's pretty shallow up here around the docks and everything. But once you get outside the docks, that's where you start to see that little drop and that little ledge. I'm thinking right in here is probably going to be total money and probably a community spot on the lake as well, since there's not too many points. So as we come over here, again, nothing, just not a lot of contours. maybe come right in here and just kind of look and see if there's really that good of a ledge that it's kind of showing there. I doubt there is. It's probably just very slow and very tapering off. And really, guys, that's about it on Lake Weatherford from an offshore standpoint. I guess there's one more spot I forgot to point out to you, and that's right here. If you look, you kind of got a little underwater point that comes out right in this area. Now, I don't know what the potential there would be for that to be a good spot, but it's definitely a spot that I would look at because you can see it kind of makes a little bit of a flat top there right on top of it. But check those out as far as offshore spots. Again, pay a lot of attention to out here. See what you can find out here. Focus on your points. And I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and switch over before we end this offshore video. I'm going to switch over and we're going to go over to Google Earth. And I want to show you where these diffusers are because I think that's going to be, like I said before, just really key when it comes to summertime fishing. So let's switch over real quick and I'll show you. Okay, so I switched back over to the Google Earth waypoints that I talked to you guys about. And obviously, there was a lot of stuff that we could fish around, a lot of ramps, especially on this lake. But there are just a lot of different things that we found. But if you look over here to the left, I've kind of got it categorized: channels and ditches, cover, diffusers, which is something that you don't see very often at all. And then you've got offshore ramps and rocks. So let's go ahead and uncheck channels and ditches. We're going to uncheck the cover. We're going to uncheck offshore. We're going to uncheck ramps. And we're going to uncheck rocks. Actually, let's leave the offshore because we just talked about it. Of course, there weren't very many. There were only those little points that we talked about. But here are the diffusers. And so the diffusers are all kind of spread out. I believe there's 12 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 12 diffusers. And this was very interesting. I had a little bit of a hard time finding the coordinates for these diffusers. They weren't marked on Navionics. I went out and did some searching, couldn't really find anything. And so what I did was I did find a few of them, coordinates for a few of them. And then after that, once that kind of honed me into where these diffusers were, I used the Google Earth timeline to go back and find these diffusers. Each one of them would be active at different times. So if I pulled this back and I keep going, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of going through each year here and letting it drop off. But if I pull it back and I go in and I zoom into one of these, let's see if I can zoom into one of them, you'll be able to tell that it's just a little bit different. Hopefully I can do this on video. I might have to redo this video if I can't figure it out. Show you guys what I found. But basically what I did was I went through here and I waited until I saw bubbles in the water. And when I saw bubbles in the water, that's when I knew there was a diffuser. So like right there is the perfect example. Right here is a really good example. You can see there's a lot of bubbles in the water. There's a lot of bubbles in the water here and here and here. Notice they're a lot different than everything else. Now, the reason why I think these diffusers are going to be really key, especially when it comes to summertime fishing, is because that's going to produce a ton of oxygen in the water. And when that oxygen comes up, obviously that's going to bring in your plankton and stuff like that. And then that's going to bring in your bait fish, and then your bait fish come in. The predatory fish are very close behind it. And that's when you're going to, start seeing some success. So if it were me and I was fishing Lake Weatherford, especially come summertime, I would focus very heavily around these diffusers, try to find the ones that are active and fish very actively around all of those. Now, I could be totally off. For you guys that live out there on Lake Weatherford, you might tell me that I'm crazy. Those things don't help at all. But that would be my guess, is to go out there and fish around those come summertime. I think that's going to be one of your best bets, as well as fishing all those points that we talked about from the offshore standpoint. If I pull that back up, fishing those different areas that we talked about there as well. So anyways, guys, I hope this helps you out a ton. Hopefully it puts you on some fish out there on Lake Weatherford. Make sure to go out and check out my website, simplisticfishing.com. You can pick up all of these waypoints that we've talked about on Google Earth, all of these that you see right here. And then, of course, all of the offshore stuff's in here as well. So you've got a lot of different points, a lot of different areas to go check out on Lake Weatherford, and you could definitely put a pattern together with these types of points. So go check it out. It'll change the way you fish, simplisticfishing.com. And until next time, I hope you catch your PB. Take it easy.